Good morning, Talk Sober family. Today, what we are doing is talking about trauma. How does trauma affect our mind, our body, and our thoughts? How do we deal with trauma? What does it do to us psychologically? And how does trauma and alcohol mix? Well, we're going to talk to you about that, and I want to tell you a story from about 7 years ago when I was heavy into my drinking and I was dealing with trauma from the past, from my childhood. And it wasn't severe trauma. I mean, I know there's lots of people who went to war and things like that, and that, to me, in my brain, that's like really severe trauma. But some people have trauma on different levels, whatever it might be that you went through, whether it was abuse, whether it was, someone that was not kind to you, whether it was an accident, whatever it can be, there is trauma all over the place. And when I was dealing with my trauma, unfortunately, after going to therapist to therapist to therapist, they were really good at describing the problem and giving it letters and telling me what was wrong, but not so good at dealing with how to deal with it. I remember one person told me, the key was to put yourself in that traumatic situation, not fully, but kind of expose yourself to the same kind of stimulus that's giving you anxiety, and then it'll drop slowly but surely. And I found that that didn't work. I had to drink to be able to go to these situations where trauma had occurred, and, in order to be normal, I had to drink, or so I thought. And so there I was drinking like crazy, and I was dealing with trauma, and I didn't know which one of my thoughts was real. I would convince myself, oh, this happened or that happened. And I thought that relying on my memory was like gospel truth. I mean, if I remembered it, it has to be true, right? But I actually found out that the memory is a faulty system, and we can actually create and change memories as we think about them. And so all of this led me to a dark, deep hole of drinking and not knowing how to get out of traumatic feelings and thoughts, and OCD about those thoughts. Like, what happened? I need to know what happened. I need to know who was involved. I need to know what happened exactly. And I was a mess, and I was drinking. And I found out that through going through trauma, number one, drinking actually exacerbated the situation. So while I thought, hey, I got this trauma thought, I need to drink so that it goes away, or that so I could escape it, I actually found out that was doing the opposite. It was actually making it worse. Now, it didn't make it worse right away. It wasn't like, hey, I got a traumatic thought, I'm going to drink, now I'm a maniac. No, it was slow and over time, because it actually seemed like it was helping. Like anxiety. We drink because of anxiety. Anxiety goes up. We drink more because we have more anxiety from the drinking, and we keep going and keep going and keep going, and everything starts to pile up, and we feel like we're going crazy because we're alcoholics, and we probably are going crazy. And so we have to understand several key things, because when I was drinking, I couldn't find anyone to give me the truth about what was going on or explain in a way that I understood what was happening in my mind. And I found that the problem was that everyone was focusing on what was going on, not the bigger picture. The bigger picture out there is that people with trauma have traumatic symptoms. Pretty basic, right? We don't think about this. We think about, I'm anxious, what do I do about anxiety? We don't think, well, why am I anxious in the first place? We don't think, what's going on? We don't think, what is the makeup of my brain that's causing this thing to happen? And we get down on ourselves. I remember getting down on myself all the time. I've got these trauma things, and I'm anxious when I go here, and I'm scared when I go here, and this happens, and I get this, and everything seems very, very difficult. But what we need to understand is this is a normal brain reaction to trauma. You wouldn't go to someone who just came back from serving our country who has trauma and say, hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting this way? Obviously, we know what is wrong. There's nothing wrong with him or her. There's something that changed in the makeup of the brain to make them highly susceptible to not having trauma happen again. That's what our brain does. It says, I don't want trauma to happen again. And so it protects us. And then we look at that protection and we say, what's wrong with me? And we're going to get to some comments and questions as well. Amy, I do see your comment, and we will address that in a minute. And we want to get to the bottom of this topic because, trauma causes a lot of people to drink. And in my opinion, and I believe it's Terry's opinion as well, our society does not educate us properly on what's going on. It does not educate us on how alcohol works. So Terry, how you doing, and what are your thoughts on this topic?
I'm doing all right, Marcus, and good morning, everybody. Um, through most of my life, I didn't experience a lot of trauma, especially the trauma that a lot of people have gone through. And my heart definitely goes out to you that have experienced a lot of it. My most of my trauma was from alcohol and during my heavy drinking days, which I don't know, that spanned, I don't know, 10 years or whatever. But the trauma that I did experience, my answer was always to just drink more. And all that did was push it down the road, and it prevented me from dealing with it. Nowadays in sobriety, when things happen, I lost my father, just 2 weeks ago. And, it's just something you work through. And that's being sober. I'm able to work through it. If I was drinking when I lost him, I would have just kept drinking, pushed these feelings down the road. They would have built up, and it would have just been a spiral downhill. And I've seen it with many people that I work with as well, that they just get worse and worse, and they're never able to deal with these things. And it's hard to deal with these situations, but when I deal with them right away, I find the outcome is a little bit better. So, yeah, trauma is a difficult thing, definitely. Most of my, as I said, my trauma was caused by drinking, and that was things like, getting into legal trouble and the marital problems and the job situations. I went through all those things that many of us alcoholics go through, and the injuries that just happen, and then you got to make up some excuse of, yeah, I slipped down the stairs, and when that's actually what happens, but it's because of drinking, things like that, and little bicycle accidents, stuff like that. And I didn't deal with them until after I got sober, and then I was able to take care of these things in a thoughtful and productive manner, so that I could use my experience to help other people that may be going through the same thing, and I could use that experience to help myself as well for future situations.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is, we need to give our brains credit for trying to protect us. And we need to look at it. And sometimes in life, like for me, right, a lot of the trauma that I had happened when I was younger. And again, I don't want to minimize anyone's trauma or anything like that. Mine was not as bad as it could have been. A lot of people had a lot worse. Some people had a lot better. But I noticed that, when I became an older person, an adult, and started living my own life, having my own kids and everything, I noticed that these things crept in as protection. So I would be overprotective with my kids, or I'd be, different in certain areas. Like, okay, I'm going to overcorrect that. I'm not going to be like that to the extreme. Or certain things would remind me of people. I remember one time there was a very big trigger, and we talk about triggers in alcoholism, and there's triggers in pretty much everything. And the trigger for me came to my house, and it was, 10 years after the trauma had happened originally, and it just got opened up again, like deliberately, straight up. There it is. And I was having a hard time dealing with it, and people would wonder why. They're like, okay, so someone was a jerk, big deal, who cares? The guy was a jerk. I mean, kick him out of your house, that's the end of it. But see, with trauma, it's different. With trauma, what happens, sorry, I'm dealing with bad allergies today. With trauma, what happens is you revert back to the trauma state, right? So you could take a normal, functioning, rational 40-year-old man, 50-year-old man and woman, whatever, that seems upstanding and normal, and you can introduce them to the stimuli, and their brain's going to go back to what it went to back then. And sometimes it's weird. Sometimes people will act childlike. Sometimes people will shut down completely. Sometimes our brains don't know what to do. And we see this with people who went through wars and traumas and things like that, where they'll hear a loud noise and they'll flip out. I remember in high school, we had a war veteran that was our gym teacher. And I mean, everything got this guy. Everything was a trigger for this guy, and he would just completely lose it in the middle of class. And we're like, dude, what are we going to go home? What are we doing here? And you could look at it and be like, oh, it's the crazy old gym teacher. Or you could say, well, human beings weren't made for war. That's like not what we're made for. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Humans weren't made for some of the things we go through. Like we look at it today, a lot of people lose people to car accidents and things like that. The human race wasn't made to go 100 miles an hour. That's not what our bodies are made for. It's a good thing. It's normal. I mean, we got to drive places, right? But when we understand that our brains were made for a certain thing, and when something happens, we go in protection mode. And I know Amy said earlier something that I can't imagine. I can't imagine what it would be like to lose a child. It would be devastating. It would be absolutely devastating. And I think what we need to do is realize that it's okay to feel how you feel.
Yeah.
It's okay to be how you. I used to think when I drank, and I don't know if you were like this, Terry. When I drank, I was terrified of any emotion other than like laughing my ass off. That was the only one I was okay with. But I was terrified. I was like, man, what's going to happen if I cry? Like, that's going to be the end of the world. Like, I would have rather, you know, had something bad happen than cry. It would have been like the worst thing for me. And now in sobriety, I realize, yeah, it's okay to be sad. When sad things happen, it is okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve. And it's also okay to change the way you look at certain things. Because there's bad that happens in the world every single day. While you're having your best day, someone else is having the worst day of existence. While things are going bad for you, someone else is having it good. While you're struggling with money, someone else is making billions of dollars. While you're getting yelled at, someone else is getting praised. And we look at the world as a whole, and we look at it as these things happen. Now, we never think they're going to happen to us. I never thought I was going to be an alcoholic and go down the trail I went down, which ultimately almost ended in ending my life. I never thought that would happen. And what we do is we look at it as, this happened to me. This happened to me. This is mine. Instead of, this is all happening and I'm part of it. And sometimes we don't need an explanation. Sometimes it just is part of life. And it's we have to look at it and be okay with being where we're at. Don't fight it.
I think that's given us a lot of power. It's given me a lot of power, is being able to have emotions. Mm-hmm. And, that just, I never thought that. I was raised in a family, no emotions. That's why there was really no trauma or anything. It was just no emotions, no nothing. And I was kind of given that do whatever you want type of upbringing. And, so through my adulthood, I just pushed them all down. And I had all these emotions. They were building up inside. But, once I got sober, I learned it's okay. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay if your bad day is, if the only thing in your bad day is just not drinking. That's okay. It's all right to do that. It's important. It's a powerful tool to have, is to be able to cry when you need to cry. It's all right. Be able to celebrate. And those are important things, because we are given these emotions. They're there for a reason. And it's okay to have them, whatever they are. And of course, if they're extreme, maybe you want to do something about it. Sure, absolutely. But it's okay.
Yeah. And really look at the root of what it is, because a lot of times, we don't know how to interpret our emotions. Sometimes I'll get an emotion, I'm like, why am I angry? One time I found out I was angry for like a week, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, wait a minute, I wonder if this Diet Coke's making me angry. And I stopped drinking Diet Coke, and I wasn't angry. And I remember when I was young, we were moved out of my parents' house at a young age. I was like 15 or something. Moved out with my brother. And my brother was the pissed off dude. He would walk around with his hands clenched. I'm pissed off, dude. I'm pissed off. We go, what are you pissed off about? I'm just pissed off, man. And he would be pissed off about everything. And he never did figure it out. I mean, he's 43 years old. I still don't think he knows what he's pissed off about or was pissed off about. He's okay now. And we look at it and it's like sometimes our emotions can be misleading. And I think the best thing to do is just accept them. Okay, I'm sad. Okay, I'm angry. I can accept anger without having to do something about it. The issue is we get anxiety and we want to do something. We want to run. For me, I want to run. Like I want to go run as fast as humanly possible. And if you know me, I hate running. I think that's the worst sport in the world. I don't like running. I hate it, you know. And when we get angry, we want to do something. We want to make a wrong right, or punish someone, or whatever it is, or get in a brawl, or whatever our anger makes us want to do. Instead of just looking at it and saying, well, anger is usually because I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting what I want. I can't have this. I can't have that. This person won't oblige. And so we look at it and change our life philosophy from, hey, this world's all about what I want and what I need and calming my emotions, to open it up and say, this world's about 8 billion people. It's about 8 billion people. While I'm worrying about my thing, there's people getting bombed. There's people in poverty. There's people in extreme starvation. There's people getting, whatever. And we look at it and it's like, suddenly I start to realize that we're all in this together. And when someone says, I lost this person, we all lost someone. The human race lost someone. And I know to some people it's much more. Like to Terry, his dad obviously meant a lot more than someone who never met him. So obviously that's something that's important, but we all lost Terry's dad. That's all part of the human race and what's going on. And when we look at it, it's easy to say, hey, I lost this person. Like right now, we're dealing with the pretty much inevitable loss of my dad. We don't know when it's going to be, but he has late stage cancer. And, it's getting to the point where we're like, every day's pretty much a gift. And he's young. We're not ready to let him go yet. He's not even 70. And, it's difficult. It's difficult to look at. And I'm like, I'm not really ready to let that go. But I have to look at it and say, this is what it is. And I had the blessing of knowing this person. And also, some weird times too. If you ever met my dad, interesting guy. But we look at it and it's like, I had the blessing of knowing this person for almost 70 years. But we focus on, oh, it's gone now. It's gone now. It's taken from me. No, the 70 years will never be taken from you. You always have that, or however long I'm alive, right? I had the blessing of knowing him for 41 years. And that can never be taken. And when we look at that and we cherish what we have and grieve what we don't, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to have these things. It's okay to have an issue. But what won't make it better is becoming a drunk. That will never make it better. Never. Because then you're just wallowing in what could have been, what is, instead of looking at the memory of, hey, this is what I got. And I found that through sobriety, I lost someone before when I was drinking, and I lost someone in sobriety. And I found my response was completely different. Completely night and day different. And even now, my response to the person I lost during drinking is different. And it's much more balanced, and I'm able to honor the memory,
Yeah, that's and what you're saying is exactly how I've been dealing with my father's passing. And I remember what he was and what he stood for, and he was truly the nicest person I've ever met in my life. It's amazing, and that's what I hold on to. And everybody that ever met him was like, oh, he's such a nice guy, and it's great. And when it was time for him to go, so I was very blessed with that, And so, what Marcus is talking about, what I'm talking about here is just trying to be grateful.
Mhm.
Grateful for the little things in that bad situation, or sometimes the trauma situation has nothing to be grateful for. Maybe being grateful for other things in your life. Maybe that you have a roof over your head or something like that, something simple. That's something I try to focus on daily that helps me with the negativities that happen in life because they happen. But when I focus on the grateful things that I have, that helps immensely. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and thank you, one Mama Lisa. Appreciate that.
Jody says, I just unloaded on someone today after a week long bender. Every day it was building more and more. I hate this disease. My trauma started over 30 years ago with my mom's suicide. Yeah, and those are very difficult. I've known a couple people who took their own life. No one is close to me as a parent, um, but that can be extremely difficult to deal with. And I think, obviously we know that drinking is not helping your case from what you said in your sentence there. And I think the key is to finally, after 30 years, allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to understand, hey, wow, this person went through this, and that's what the outcome of that was. And yes, that's sad, and yes, that's bad, and I can embrace that and look at it a little bit differently and start to heal, because a lot of what we do in life is kicking the can down the road of healing, and it's like, okay, I'll heal later, I'm just going to drink now, I'm going to look at this, why me, why this, why that, instead of, what, let's Google the statistic, how many people take their life every year. It's a lot of them, and that's not to reduce someone to a statistic, that's to say you're not alone. You're not alone as an alcoholic. You're not alone as someone dealing with trauma. You're not alone with this stuff. Unfortunately, in our society, it's funny because when I first moved into a house as an adult, we lived in apartments from the time I moved out of my parents' house to the time that we finally got our house in California. Like, I don't know, I was like 25 or something like that, and I remember it was funny because I thought, okay, we're going to live in this house and all these people are going to come out. We're going to have barbecues like the 1950s, right? Happy thinking for me. But unfortunately, we didn't live in the 50s. We were in the 2000s. And I noticed everyone comes home, they go in their garage, they shut their garage door, they go in their house, and you never talk to them. I was like, this is weird. It's like we live in big apartments, they're just separate. It's the same thing. Everyone just goes to their own little corners, and that's about it. And in our society, that's how we function. We don't talk about the difficult stuff. We don't talk about the things that hurt us. We don't talk about the vulnerabilities and the hurts and the traumas. We don't talk about our weaknesses, right? We're just out there projecting an image. And once you're able to lose the image, everything in life changes. Once you take off that metaphorical life suit of this is who I am, I'm strong. Like for me, I was the kid who would like fall down the skateboard ramp, get all scabbed up and skinned up, get back on the skateboard and go. I didn't cry. People knew me as the tough guy who did not cry, no matter what. Broke my arm, it was completely misshapen, didn't cry. I'd go get spanked by my parents, and they're like, we spank you more than the other kids because you don't cry, And I'm like, well, shit, maybe I should start crying, but I'm tough, I don't cry. And I took that with me well into my 20s where I thought I was tough. And this is what I do. And once I was able to shed that and say, you know what? Sometimes I'm tough, sometimes I'm a wimp, sometimes I cry, sometimes I laugh. I'm just me. That's it. I don't know what it is. And once we get those labels gone and we say, hey, I'm just me. It's okay. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be who I need to be. You know, I think that's a big key because we hold on to these things as like baggage. When they say, oh, I don't want to date someone with baggage, or I don't want, that guy's got a lot of baggage, right? What we're doing is we're going through life with a backpack of stories, and we're ready to tell those stories because that defines in our mind who we are. And it's like, I drink because of this. I'm angry because of this. I'm sad because of this. Well, what if you were just you? What if it all didn't matter? What if I was just like, hey, People come into my life, people go from my, I had trauma and I had this, and they don't make me who I am. They don't make me who I am. Who I am is who the hell knows. I can't define that. I'm not an astrophysicist or whatever people study that stuff, right? And we have to look at it and change our life philosophy from everything's about me, everything's happening to me, it's all about my emotions and my feelings, to what about everyone? What about everyone else?
Yeah, and a lot of trauma that's happened to me. What I've done with it, what I've learned to do with it, is use it for my experience. It's made me a stronger person for myself because I've gotten through many of these situations successfully, and maybe I'll know how to deal with them next time or a similar situation that comes up. But also, I can help somebody else with that may be going through that situation, and that's another thing with that helps with being an alcoholic in recovery and having a lot of recovering friends. They can help me too, and this is another huge tool for dealing with trauma. Is with all the people I know that have gone through, many people have gone through things much worse than me, and they've made it through also, and they can give me the good advice, and that's what I do. I reach out to them, and then maybe if I see somebody that might be going through something similar, I tell them what my experience was, how I got through it. It helps me immensely, and it helps them too, hopefully. But yeah, it's a good tool to have. This experience is a good thing to have. So I try not to forget about it. I try not to dwell on it, but I try not to forget about it as well, because it can help me through life later.
Absolutely. And that's one thing to be grateful for, is that you made it out.
Yeah.
You made it through what you got through. You had trauma, you had this. And if you haven't made it out, get safe. Do what you need to do to get out of that trauma situation. And one of those trauma situations can be drinking.
Yep.
Drinking can cause trauma, and drinking can affect your memories and your thoughts in a way that mimics traumatic events. It's interesting because I remember my grandma she's married 16 times, and she was drunk for probably 60 of the 80 some odd years she was alive. And she finally got sober at the end. But I remember she would have ideas of what her life was, and we'd be like, no, Grandma, that's not what happened. I think you're kind of nuts. We love you, but you are nuts. And she was nuts because of drinking. That's what alcohol does to you, right? It's inevitable. Like, that's what's going to happen. If you drink enough alcohol, it's going to mess with your mind and your thoughts. And it's also going to impair your ability to heal from the stuff that you started drinking over in the first place. Like, that's the big irony. It's like, if I could go back and, like, kick alcohol's ass, I would. Because I'm like, you did this to me. Now, I chose to drink it, but this is what this did to me. It caused me to think this certain way. It caused my brain to develop pathways that controlled my thoughts. And my thoughts controlled what I thought was my reality, and I was living in a make-believe world where my reality didn't match real reality, and I was in hell. And it's funny because you hear alcoholics all the time where it's like, hey, church is for people who don't want to go to hell. Getting sober is for people who went to hell and don't want to go back. And we look at it and it's like, yeah, we went to a hell, but it was of our own making. It was fabricated by alcohol. It was something where if you could wave a magic wand and get someone sober, they'd go, whoa, wait a minute. So you're telling me it's not really dark outside? I have blinders on? That's what you're telling me. I have been living in the dark my entire life, and now I just need to go like that, and there's trees and sun and the beach and all this stuff that I thought didn't exist. And that's what alcohol does. It puts on the blinders so that you can't heal, you can't recover, you can't get better, you can't change your life philosophy because it's all about you. And alcohol makes us extremely selfish. Like, I'm pretty narcissistic and selfish without alcohol. And then you put alcohol in it, and it's like, okay, now it's 1,000 times worse. And now all you think about is you. And I'm glad sobriety gave me the gift of understanding there's 8 billion other people, and I'm special just like 8 billion other people. And once you understand that, it's like, okay, well, why did this happen to me? No, no, no. This is happening. If you were to vision society and the human race as like one body, right? And I think the Bible talks about this in some way, where it's like, hey, it's all one body. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's a little pain over here, and over here it feels great. It's the same thing. It's all part of one thing. There's bad, there's good, there's weird, there's happy, and we look at it and we start to understand that the world is so much bigger than me and my thoughts.
Yeah, alcohol's definitely given me, when I was drinking, there was a lot of delusion in my life. I mean, there was so many different smoke screens that alcohol would cause. I was, the silly little things, like being at the pool hall and thinking, oh, I'm a better pool player when I'm drinking. Yeah, you're not. You're not a better. But, one of the biggest smoke screens was looking at sobriety and how life was just going to suck when I got sober. These are my thoughts when I was drinking, and I just thought everything was going to become boring and all that, and it was going to be a huge process to get sober, because I tried many times, like most of us do, tried to get sober, and every time I did, those DT symptoms would kick in, and I'd start to shake and get the headaches and all that stuff, I was afraid of that because it was really painful. And then eventually I went through that, and it almost killed me. This is why we always say you need to go to a doctor if you're going to quit drinking suddenly, and it's very, very important. It literally almost killed me quitting, and that was probably the biggest trauma of my life. It wasn't, well, I guess it was kind of emotional, because alcohol it does affect the mind, but it was, at that point, it was mostly a physical trauma situation, and I was afraid approaching that, and I did not go to the doctor, and that's why I seized and went unconscious and ICU and induced coma and all that crap. And it's scary stuff, but actually a couple months before that, I had gone to rehab, and I went through those DTs as well, but they worked with me. They gave me medicines and worked on the psychological aspect, and I was able to detox successfully and not so painfully. So, it's something that's important. But alcohol gave me this smoke screen when I was drinking that, oh man, I don't want to go through that. And then sobriety's going to suck. And, once I got over that hump, I was happy. Life was great immediately for me. Many people, it's not. But for me, I was doing great. I was just like, oh my God, I don't need alcohol right now. I can do anything I want now. I'd go to the store at 11 p.m. at night. The silly little things in life that we learn to appreciate in sobriety, that I was able to experience all of them. I still am able to experience all of them, and it's huge. So that trauma, it's definitely that alcohol causes that smoke screen about the trauma that we might experience soon.
Absolutely. And if you guys are resonating with what we're saying and you're struggling to get sober and everything like that, if you're detoxing, definitely go to a doctor, get through detox and everything like that, because it can be deadly. If you're looking for something to help you change the way that you think, like how Terry and I deliberately changed the way that we thought when we got sober, you could go over to talksober.com. This will also help support what we're doing here on the channel. You can go over to talksober.com, click the big yellow button here. Important to know, me and Terry are not trained addiction counselors or doctors or anything like that. We just put together a guide and a course that's video-based to help you learn what you need to learn to get and stay sober, the mental aspect, because there is a mental battle that you need to go through. And I think looking at the things that Terry and I went through and understanding, hey, here's a part of life you might not be prepared for. Here's a part of life you might not have the tools for sobriety. And what we've done is we've put those tools in here so you can understand them. So you could go over to talksober.com, help support the channel by clicking the yellow button, it'll take you to a sign up page. And when the sign, there it is. It'll take you to a sign up page. You can go here. It's less than the cost of a cheap domestic beer a day, and you can get access to all this stuff. You just put your name, last name, email, put all your info in here. You can cancel whenever you want. You could stay as long as you want if you want to help support the channel. And what'll happen is you'll get instant logins that'll take you to our sobriety course, which has videos, PDFs, MP3s, all kinds of stuff. It's got a 30-day system where you go through the letters each day, and then you watch a video, you fill out a worksheet, and it's going to take you through all the stuff that I've learned and Terry has learned over the last almost 7 years each of being sober. That's going to show you, hey, this is how we got through certain situations. This is what I understood. This is what I wish the recovery community talked about. Because the recovery community, it's great, but I think it's for people who are already sober for a while. Right? It was very difficult for me trying to get sober because it was like, okay, here's how to maintain sobriety. And I was like, well, I need to know how to start sobriety. And of course, start it by going to the doctor and learning what's going on with your mind. And then you could go to talksober.com and get access to this, which is good stuff. So talksober.com.
Yes, indeed. And there's a couple of those days in there that dig a lot deeper into trauma and alcohol, and how trauma affects, or how alcohol affects trauma, and how to deal with those situations. So check it out. Alone in the Other World says detox is deadly. My advice for you is just go to the hospital or call an ambulance or something. Absolutely, get some help. Definitely, that's a huge thing. And the comment right before that, Stephanie, she said, alone. Well, you're responding to what Alone in the World said. Stop trying to be smart when you're drunk. Believe me, it will never ever work. And Stephanie says, you're right. It's too much work to try to be right. Too much work. It's easier. Just be yourself. Yeah. I learned a long time ago, do I want to be right, or do I want to be sober and happy? And I want to be sober and happy. It's okay. It's okay. Even if I am right, it's okay. Just let it go. I'll just take care of what I need to take care of for me. And if somebody else has a different opinion, that's okay. It's all right. We're all different. We've all had different experiences that get us to come up with different conclusions on things.
Stephanie says, I just had 8 beers in 2 days. So pissed at myself. Well, alcoholics get drunk. Alcoholics drink. That's what they do. You can be angry at yourself, or you could look at the data and say, what was it that caused me to drink? How can I avoid it in the future? And when we start to look at it in more of a stoic fashion, okay, what's the data say? This is all feedback. This is all feedback. So I drank because I didn't have the tool to deal with whatever it was that made me drink, whether it's something like I was happy or I was there or whatever. Look at that as data. Meg Hood says, hi from South Florida. Well, hello from Central Florida and Northern California, where Terry's at, where I used to be. Your channel's helping me stay sober today. Awesome.
That's awesome. Hey, and on top of what Marcus said to Stephanie for being angry in the drinking a few beers. Oh, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Anyways, it may just be a matter of that you felt like drinking. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, a lot of times as to why, Marcus is mentioning, think about why. And even if it was just, I wanted a beer, it sounded good. Well, then think about that reason. Okay, you wanted something cold, you wanted something tasty. There's other cold and tasty things that don't have alcohol in it. You may have wanted the effect of alcohol. Well, those non-alcoholic things aren't going to have that, but at least you get 2 out of 3 of those things, right? The cold and tasty. Try that next time you get that craving. Simple, really simple solution. And it might work. Give it a go.
And also, the fact that you want the drink so bad probably has less to do with actually wanting the drink and more to do with the fact that you can't have it. It's like those things when, you have someone who's average, decent looking person. As soon as they get, someone who likes them, everyone starts liking them. And it's the whole psychological thing of you want what you can't have. And when we look at it and we say, well, yeah, I want to drink because I drank a lot, therefore I train my brain that I want this. And then also there's this other stuff coming in. And then you're like, so what? Who on earth says I have to get exactly what I want all the time? Like, who died and made me the king? I don't think anyone. I ain't the king. Sit down. You don't have to have it. But you just focus on that. And cravings do go away in about 15 minutes, usually.
Yes. Laurel says, that's my problem. I beat myself up about drinking. Yeah, I beat myself up about drinking too. And, you know, one attitude to try to get to is just don't worry about what you did. Don't worry about that past drinking. Don't worry about the alcohol you had yesterday. Just try to get sober today. So what do you need to do to get sober? Do you need to go to the doctor? I mean, going to the doctor is a huge decision. I didn't want to do that crap. There's no way I wanted to you know, if I went to the doctor, then that would mean I'd have to tell everybody that I was drinking. And that would mean the cat's out of the bag. That means I'm going to have to quit drinking. But that was a decision I had to make. I mean, this is life and death for me, at least it was, and still is if I start drinking. And I had to make that decision and get help and, join a community of people that are also, trying to not drink. And that's what did it for me. And then they told me, don't worry about what you did. Don't worry about how many times you tried to quit. Just try to move forward sober. If you mess up, okay, try it again. And that's what helped me a lot.
Stephanie says, as soon as I'm alone, I want to drink. This is a very common thing. Loneliness, boredom. I find that what I hear from a lot of alcoholics is that they're not comfortable in their own skin, which means they're not accepting who they are with their flaws and everything. They're trying to project a persona that is not them. That's really what the essence of being comfortable in your own skin is. And there's two types of anxiety in the world. There's a type of anxiety that's from triggers and different things. And there's another type of anxiety where there's a disconnect between who you are and who you think you are or who you want to project to the world, right? Like, okay, there's an incongruency. And once we realize that we're human and we all have incongruencies and there's all this stuff going on, it's okay. It's like when someone becomes a pastor or a priest or something, they automatically think, okay, now I'm held to this new standard. What if I really don't think like that? What if I doubt sometimes? What if I have this? And I only met one pastor in my life that was okay with that and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, sometimes I do. Actually, two. One was a priest, one was a pastor. But the other ones I met were like, no, I don't doubt I am a man of God and I'm this upstand. And I'm like, yeah, well, pretty soon you're going to have trouble with that because, you have to admit you have these things going on. And when you're alone with yourself, learn to be okay being alone. This was something that was very difficult for me. But once I sat there and I was like, I accept me. I'm okay. I'm just going to be here. I don't need entertainment. I don't need, people. I could just be here and be alone and be okay. And I don't have to drink. Right? Try it out. See what happens. I doubt the worst case scenario will happen. You'll probably just be fine. Maybe a little bored. Maybe drink too many sodas or whatever. But if you can sit and be with yourself and not drink, I think that is key.
Yes. Robin says, Fresca and cranberry with a fresh lime squeeze is yummy. Yeah, that sounds good. You know what the problem with that is, though? Okay, here's way back when I used to buy food for the San Francisco 49ers for their breakfast before their games, right? And there was one player that wanted Fresca. So I had to go buy Fresca. That stuff was hard to find. I don't know if it still is hard to find, but anyways. Alone in the Other World says, the problem with me that I always get angry is if anyone gives me advice about drinking, who are you anyways to tell me that look at yourself first? Yeah, absolutely. I thought the same thing, especially when I was drinking. One of the biggest things I had to learn in sobriety is I got to not worry about what other people think. Yeah, I had the friend, the really close friend that would say, "Why don't you just quit drinking?" And that's because he could just quit drinking. I couldn't, and he pissed me off. That made me very angry. And I had to learn to let that go. Other
I
people's opinions.
Let
Go
me
ahead.
add something to that too, because sometimes people's opinions are a barometer for where we should be or what we should do.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was drinking, I was a genius. Like I probably when I drank, I thought I scored a 9 billion on the IQ test, right? And I thought I was the be all end all, and you couldn't teach me nothing. And now that I look at it, I'm like, damn, there's some people I should have listened to. There's some people I should have listened to. And that guy there, is it wrong? Is what he's saying wrong? And we have to look at this in life. When someone comes to us and says something, instead of, oh, hey, buddy, you don't know me, yeah, he doesn't know you. Who cares? But let's look at what he's saying. If he comes up to me and says, I'm a drunk, you need to quit. Okay, am I a drunk? Yeah, I am. Do drunks need to quit? Well, yeah, because eventually it's not going to end well. So we have to look at it as a barometer. If someone says, hey, you know what? You're kind of nuts or you're kind of delusional or whatever. Like if Terry came to me and he said, hey, Marcus, you know what? I think this about you. I think there's something to worry about here. I'd take it to heart. And if someone that's not Terry, because Terry I respect and I trust, if someone else came off the road and was like, hey, dude, I think you're a dick or whatever, right? I have to look at it and be like, okay, am I being slightly assholic? Maybe. Maybe I need to check myself. And sometimes we need to get over our ego and say, you know what, that person's right. Even though I don't like them. Yeah. Like I remember one of the things that was hard for me was my dad was always quick to point out you're an alcoholic, which, I mean, with his mom, he was probably an expert in alcoholics. So I probably should have listened. But my pride got in the way, and I'm like, no, I know more than you. I'm going to study these psychology books and whatever. Maybe I could have shortened my drinking life if I listened. Got over my pride and said maybe even though I don't agree with this person, maybe there's something there. Maybe they see something that I'm not able to see. And these are blind spots. This is why we have denial and blind spots, because we can't see it. You can't see the thing in yourself. It's easy to point out in others. When I was drunk, everyone was a drunk. Ah, look at that drunk. I'm sitting here drunk. And I probably was like, look at those two guys, they're drunk. It's like, no, Marcus, there's only one. There's only one guy there. And I'm calling him a drunk, right? And we have to look at it and we have to say sometimes there's a barometer. Sometimes we need to learn to listen to the opinions of others without taking offense. Sometimes someone will come up and tell you something that's totally wrong. Do you need to get mad? Do you need to get in a fight? No. Who cares? If a guy off the street says, Marcus, I don't like your eyebrows. Okay, that's fine. He doesn't like eyebrows. That's cool. Whatever. Right? Or whatever it is. Because sometimes people will be like, Marcus, you're delusional. Or I remember I was talking to someone in the psychology profession, and they were like, well, are you sure that works? It sounds kind of like you're pushing emotions away. Where do they go? And I'm like, well, it's working so far. I'm not drinking 7 years. I think we're okay. I think I'm got a good barometer. I could take it to heart and say, well, maybe there is something. Maybe I am avoiding something. And when we look at it with humility and understanding, we don't have to prove people wrong. Because I would drink to prove them wrong. God damn it, you don't know what a drunk is. And it's like, who did I prove wrong? I just proved myself to be an ass. That's all I did. You know.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Look at those situations with, when I try to let it go, but as Marcus is saying, look at it with humility and try to be open-minded. Listen, I mean, we can let go what somebody's, criticizing us for, but at the same time, yeah, look at it, look at my own reactions to things. Am I behaving properly? If I'm trying to be a good person in sobriety, I'm going to strive to improve and improve on my relations with others. And that seems to help a lot. Meg Hood said, I find that when I solve one of my halt triggers, if I'm feeling antsy, really helps. And for those that don't know, HALT is hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And so those are four things, especially in early sobriety, you want to try to avoid. So anytime you're hungry, eat. When you're angry, maybe take a step back. We talk about that 15 minutes. If you get a craving, well, that can also help if you're angry. Take that 15 minutes and back off from a situation if you're able to. When you're lonely, maybe it's time to find somebody to talk to, or just try to get out of that loneliness. Tired, obviously rest. When I was in early sobriety, I'd take naps. That's what I did. Like, I'm tired. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm going to take a nap, and I still do that if I need to. You know.
Yep.
So a helpful tool right there.
Scott brings up an interesting one. He says, my biggest regret when I gave away almost 10 years of sobriety was the gift of being comfortable in my own skin. Fear of people and economic insecurity came back with a vengeance. And that right there is why I never take the first drink. Because I'm terrified of what would happen if my mind was unable to think like it is now. Because I know that alcohol affects the working of my mind. And if I don't have the working of my mind, just last night, my daughter was watching The Big Bang Theory, pretty good show. And there's this one where Sheldon was worried about losing his sanity, right? His whole thing, he's like a brainiac, and he's like, I don't want to lose my sanity because I'm the smartest person alive. And talk about an ego guy, but, it's funny on TV. And so he's terrified of it, and he's making these videos of what to watch when he loses his mind. Because he thinks he's losing his mind, and he's like, okay, here's your friends, here's what you think, here's what you do. Because he's afraid that he's going to lose that. That's what drinking does. It will make me lose my thoughts, my ability to rationalize, my ability to be comfortable in my own skin, and it's going to put me right back in that place, whether I want to or not. And whenever I think about drinking or whatever, I say, yeah, go ahead, have another glass of insanity. You want to go back to the mental institute and actually, stay the night there a few times? Have a drink. Because that was terrifying. I didn't want to stay there that night, and luckily I was coherent enough to talk him out of making me stay there. But we have to look at that and say, hey, I need to keep my sanity. And the only way to do that is sobriety.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true for you, Scott, but it sounds kind of like you stopped working or slowed down. You working a sobriety program, whether it was AA. It sounds like because you quoted some AA stuff there, but whatever it was, and that's why I try to stay involved in sobriety, and like do this webinar and talk to other sober alcoholics, and I do it on a daily basis. Is I need to be reminded of that nightmare. I have that built-in forgetter that many of us have as to the bad times of alcohol. And even I've seen and I've learned that I can't just be apathetic about a sobriety program and just assume I'm going to stay sober. I have to stay active in it, and that's what I try to do constantly. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And we are getting down to the wire. If you want to support the channel, if you guys like what we're saying and you want to keep us on the air, as it were, you can help support the channel and also get all kinds of tools to help you get and stay sober. We're setting up a resource for you, and it's already got some good stuff in it over at talksober.com. That's talksober.com. If you want to support the channel, just click this big yellow button. It'll take you to this page where you can fill this out, and you could get instant access to all of our membership stuff we have there. And other things. I haven't talked to Terry about this yet, but I started with one of my other businesses. I switched it to a forum-based, and I think we might switch Talk Sober to a forum-based. That way it has a community element to it. Terry, I'll take this away from your face so I can see what your thoughts are on that. There you go. So I think we'll do a forum-based, which will really help out. And if you guys want access to that, just go to talksober.com, click the big yellow button, and right now you'll be able to get the PDFs, the videos, all kinds of stuff. And if you want to book a private sobriety call with Terry and I, you could just click here, and you can get a private one-off call and get you guys from there. But talksober.com, you can also join our Facebook group, everything like that. And we'll see if we can get Terry to make that face again. That was great. All right, cool. So, any last minute thought? What do you think about the forum idea? I did it with a site last week, and it is maintenance. So we will have to check it every now and then to make sure everything's going okay.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh.
And what do you guys think
know.
too?
I'd have to look and see.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
I don't. Probably, if it's working, it sounds good. Something that's going to have more engagement with you guys that are watching. It sounds like a great thing.
Yeah.
Because it's great to hear so many different people's perspectives on sobriety, and that's what helps a lot is listening to other people, whether they have 1 day of sobriety or 30 years of sobriety. Everybody has something to offer that can help us. So yeah, sounds like a good thing.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So, talksober.com. Click the yellow button, get signed up. If you have any questions or anything, let us know. Subscribe, click the bell. Check us out here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Thursday. Did I say Tuesday?
Yeah, it's all good.
My brain's gone. I have no brain. I'm trying to have coffee. Speaking of naps, I woke up at 7, and then I'm like, I need to take a nap. So I took a nap, and then I scrambled to get this show up. And so I'm going. Hopefully my kids bring me like a 50-shot espresso or something because I'm lagging today. But yeah, check it out at talksober.com. Click the yellow button, and we'll see you guys next week, Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. Everyone else, Google it, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.